Alicia, thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait to talk with you and hear about your story and your experience with the ketogenic diet for your own mental health. We met a while ago in the Keto for Mental Health group that I run online. And you've been one of those people that are sharing their experiences very openly and seeing your improvements and the impact that this diet has made on your health so far is more than inspiring. So I cannot wait to hear from you and if you can share with us, what has it been for you, what what challenges you face, like all of it, whatever you feel like sharing that may be helpful to someone who is kind of maybe starting on the same path or considering or doesn't know what this may be. I think that would be super valuable. So why don't we start with just a little bit of backtracking, maybe how were you before finding out the diet? Where were you at? What was the situation? And then how you heard about the diet? Why don't we start there?
Okay, well, uh, my father had a mental illness. He was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, but he wasn't diagnosed until later in life. He sort of had an untreated mental illness for a long time. And I think the stigma of mental illness affected that decision for him not to get treatment. So I was kind of introduced to mental illness as a young child. And but I didn't know that's what it was until later on when I was a teenager and he would say things to us that sounded kind of paranoid. And my sister and I, we would think, yeah, there's something wrong. And then when I was 24, I developed signs of mental illness. But again, nobody knew. Nobody in my family knew anything about mental illness. So people just said, oh, she's like her father, and left it at that. So when I was, so it took a few years. I went through a number of doctors. My first diagnosis was major depression. And then just paranoia. And I was diagnosed with a lot of different things. I developed it in 1997. And in about 2002, I was the first time I started taking medication for it. And it didn't quite work. It worked a little bit, but it wasn't complete. So it took a few more years and a few more diagnoses for me to finally settle on the diagnosis of bipolar. So can I say like what medications?
Sure.
They added a medication, they made it a cocktail.
Okay.
And that really helped my symptoms.
Okay.
So at that point, I had been in the hospital one time. At that point, I went to work in a very stressful environment. And it was kind of a toxic workplace sort of situation. And I worked there for 8 years, and everything sort of escalated over the 8 years. And I got to the point where I was so stressed out that I ended up in the hospital again, even though I was taking my medication and never stopped taking it. But the stress level just broke through to that to that point.
So just to check with you, what you're saying and what I'm hearing is probably that it's not that the medication was not effective, you would assert, but just the environment became a lot more stressful. Is that what you are?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Okay.
I was taking my medications, but the environment was so stressful that my symptoms broke through.
Mm-hmm.
And and I ended up in the hospital, and at that point I decided to quit that job and do something else. It wasn't worth it. And then the next 6 years or so, we're pretty peaceful and healing, and I got back on a different medication, and I had the medication worked, but I always had breakthrough symptoms. I always had the feeling, like I always had some delusions that weren't completely eradicated by the drugs. So in 2023, I started the diet. I started intermittent fasting. And when you intermittent fast, a lot of people do keto. So I started doing intermittent fasting and keto, and I joined this community, and I learned to do it right because I had done it before, but I realized that I had been doing it wrong. I had been eating like dirty keto, like, bread, sweets and pastries and stuff that had the label
Yeah.
keto, but
Keto,
so
right?
I wasn't doing it right. So I finally started doing clean keto, and it worked, and I did lose weight. But the more digging I did into keto and intermittent fasting and just healthy diets in general, the more I found out about the rest of the health benefits, and then I ran into Chris Palmer's book, and it hadn't been published yet, but I watched his interviews on YouTube, and I read as much as I could about what his mitochondrial metabolic theory of mental illness was. And he, I, at that point when I read about him, I thought, well, um, I'm not, I don't have any symptoms. Like the breakthrough symptoms are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was still kind of skeptical. I was still kind of like, this can't be fixed by a diet. Like if this could be fixed by a diet, somebody would have thought of it a long time ago.
Right. We would know.
um, but then I ran into a complication because I started having tachycardia, which is fast heartbeat.
Yeah.
Or irregular heartbeat. And the only way it would go away is if I ate 50 grams of carbs a day. So I couldn't do keto. And I went to my doctor. We investigated it. They investigated it. They had me wear a Holter monitor for a week, and the results were not negative. Like they couldn't find anything. And meanwhile, my symptoms came back. I did notice that my breakthrough symptoms came back. And so it took me about 2 or 3 months to figure out what was going on. And nobody really knew what to tell me. So I finally was watching Facebook Live by Dr. Ken Berry, and I asked him the question. I told him what was going on and asked him what it could be. And he said, you need to look at your electrolytes and your minerals. And I was already taking electrolytes. So I took some minerals, and that solved the problem. The irregular heartbeat was gone. So I got back on keto in January of this year. And I sort of switched from keto to carnivore, ketogenic carnivore, because mostly because it's easier, because I'm just like one person, and it was easier for me to cook one dish meal than to make different sides.
Yeah.
So that's basically the reason I did it. But I had severe back pain, and I found that when I stopped eating vegetables, my back pain went away. So
Mm.
there are other health benefits, not just this. But so I've been on keto since then, ketogenic carnivore, and just enjoying, and my breakthrough symptoms went away again when I got back on keto.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I
How long
guess
did it take for you to notice, like, so, like, for the symptoms to go away? Were you also measuring? Like, did you track carefully what your ketosis levels were?
uh no, I didn't track them. I didn't write them down anywhere. I don't have like a record of it. Just the record that's in my Keto Mojo. I
Mm-hmm.
think it holds like 50 readings or something. It holds a certain number of readings. No, but I didn't track them, but I do check them, and I have tried to stay above 1.5.
Okay. And how long in staying consistently, I assume daily and weekly, do you know, like roughly, just was it a week? Was it more than that?
It
Less?
was not that long. It was maybe 1 or 2 weeks before the symptoms just went away.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I feel like, I feel like, well, darn, if I had known this a long time ago, I could have helped my father and helped myself a long time ago. Like, it's just so easy. Just eat certain foods and you have no symptoms. So, like I was saying earlier, I feel like people should know that this is an option, whether they want to do it themselves. They should know that this is an option, and that they can investigate it on their own. But it worked for me.
I also think that so many people, and that was my experience as well, when I heard about it, it's so simple and so, it's almost like too easy and too good to be true, right? Like,
Yeah.
serious mental illness can be addressed by a diet, unheard of. And what kind of a diet? High fat diet. I've been trying to also consciously take care of my health throughout the years. Low fat was nowhere near healthy at that time. So I had that such a long time of that inner battle of making sense of all this. How is it even possible? Is it real? And I think that's the reason why we're here today, to, kind of share our journeys, that yes, it has done profound difference in our lives and regards to mental illness symptoms. And it's so powerful. Even though it's simply just a diet, the depths of the ketogenic diet as a therapy, right? Like, we're targeting the metabolism. And when we look at it from that perspective, it makes a bit more sense, because we're healing the metabolism, which is the life to our body. Now we provide alternative energy, the brain can function properly. So we don't look at, most people think of keto just as a diet, but the mechanisms behind it, and the reason why it makes such a profound difference, unlike any other diet, is because
Mhm.
it works on the cellular level, and like healing the root cause, which usually for most people with insulin resistance, it's just not being able to get that energy. So, Was your doctor on board? How did they feel about this whole thing? How did you introduce it to them?
My psychiatrist,
Yeah, or the whole
uh,
medical team that you were with, if anyone else.
my my general practitioner is actually the one who suggested, not for mental illness, but she suggested intermittent fasting, and she told me to look up Dr. Fung and read his materials. So she sort of set it off. So she's open. She's not like an expert on keto, but she's very open to what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
My psychiatrist is the same. She doesn't know about, as far as I know, she doesn't know much about using keto as a treatment for mental illness. But she's also very open. Like it's more of a partnership. We work together to manage my illness, and she's open to what I want to do too.
Amazing. That's great. Was that very helpful? Like, were you
It's
self-taught?
extremely helpful because I've run into situations where a doctor was like, well, you're going to do this, and I don't think I would be able to do this with somebody like that. So I have been able to lower my medications about 60%, partially due to weight loss, uh,
Okay.
but also partially due to the effect of the ketogenic diet. Um, so I I don't anticipate. Okay, so I'm not in a rush to lower my medications more. I'm just gonna see how things work out because I've run into awkward situations with food in social situations where you can't really control everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then people get offended because you're not eating what what's at the party or whatever, or travel also is hard. It's hard to control. You can find protein just about anywhere, but to pair that with fat, the amount of fat that you need for to stay in ketosis can be difficult to find sometimes. So I'm just gonna sort of uh see how things work out, learn a little bit more about how to handle those situations, and maybe think about lowering my medication more later on, once I've got the hang of it. So I'm not in a rush. I'm happy. The medications are low enough that I don't have side effects like akathisia,
Mm-hmm.
and which is extremely uncomfortable. Uh, but they're enough that they sort of supplement the keto, or I don't know. I don't know. I may be able to go off them completely right now, but I'm just choosing not to.
That's amazing. I love that because, it's such a good point that you're making with that. And I think it takes a lot of stability to be so confident in the diet, to kind of have walk the walk, exactly the situations that are tricky, to know how to handle them, to know how kicking out accidentally of ketosis may impact your mood and like your symptoms, just so that you help yourself really not get into trouble and situations that you don't want to get into, and then like having to climb back up. I think it's very, very smart and proactive not to be in a rush. And I love hearing that the side effects are not as bad, so it kind of works with you, and it's doable to be careful enough. So you're kind of making progress without rushing it. And yeah, maybe you can be completely off, but it's a process too. And I feel like the less stress we put on the body, especially depending on how long we've been on those medications, obviously there is withdrawal symptoms and all that. So I can't think of a better way to approach it. I think that's very very smart. And as far as tapering, how did that go for you? Like, did you feel, was the diet completely making up for the lower dose. How did you feel about that process, and how long did it take you? You said 60%. Over what period of time? Um,
Oh, a long time. Maybe 2 years
mm-hmm,
over uh or now it's been almost 2 years. Um Probably since the beginning of 2023.
mm-hmm. Okay.
It was
So you're in.
it, I dropped by 1.5 milligram increments. So I tapered. Um, I was able to taper using, I know a lot of people go to compounding pharmacies and get really small amounts of increments
Mhm.
in order to prevent the side effects. I have not had those problems so far. I just lower by whatever the next pill dosage is,
Mhm.
and I've been able to do that. I've lowered from like 4.5 to 1.5 on one
Okay.
medication,
Yeah,
and 1.5 increments.
got it. Okay. That went smooth, you're saying.
It went really smooth. Like I never had any um symptoms at all. Nothing, no rebound symptoms, no any kind of symptoms. They I just went on as normal. I didn't feel any difference.
Amazing. That
Yeah.
gives us all like the proof that we look for, how, how powerful can this be, and the fact that it doesn't come with any side effect unless you have had any. Can you think of anything unwanted as far as side effects from the diet at all?
From the diet, um, no, a lot of people, I mean, I have had no side effects from the diet. The only thing is that people tell you you're gonna die of heart disease, all that red meat is bad for you, all that fat is bad for you. And my your LDL is going to be high.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest arguments against the keto diet or high fat, high saturated fat diets is that your cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and my cholesterol is normal. My LDL is a little high, but it's not something that I'm worried. I mean, that would be the only side effect.
Mm-hmm.
I have not felt any other side effects.
Have you, though, noticed increases in the good cholesterol and lowering triglycerides? Or
My triglycerides and my HDL are textbook perfect.
wow, good. That's amazing.
Um, the only other side effects I've felt from the diet are really good side effects because I feel really good. I have more energy. My the brain fog is gone. Um, and I have had a lot of really good uh health benefits from doing this diet other than just the mental illness. Like I had GERD and that has gone away. And I had prediabetes and that has gone away. And I had the back pain and that has gone away. And so, yeah, I mean, mostly good side effects.
That's amazing, and such a wide range. And kind of back to that, we're working with metabolism improvement, and that's where we see such a wide range of things that improve in the body naturally, because it's just being able to function as it's supposed to. And such a holistic yet powerful intervention. So that's really great to hear. Um, I remember you shared once that was there like an experience that you had with the too soon with the medication dosage tapering off. Was there one time when it was when your doctors put you on like lower dose due to the diet? Am I
due
remember?
to due to the there was one time, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but my doctor lowered my medication, and at the same time, that's when I started having the tachycardia. So I thought it was withdrawal symptoms at first,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I was having the tachycardia. But she said that's not one of the withdrawal symptoms that she knows of for that drug. And that was the only time, I think, um, that I thought I had side effects.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
got it. Okay, maybe something else. So, are you planning to continue with the carnivore? That seems to be working for you going forward as well.
Yeah, the carnivore works for me. I like not having back pain. I mean, I'm not religious about it. I'll eat, I traveled recently, and they had an omelet, and the omelet had tomatoes and mushrooms, and I ate the tomatoes and mushrooms. I'm not going to be really dogmatic about it.
Yeah.
But when I cook for myself, I don't use vegetables.
Hmm.
And I plan on continuing, yes.
Awesome.
I
And
Go
so,
ahead.
if someone is just starting on this path, just based on your personal experience and challenges, what would you recommend them? What are some tips that you learned through your own experience, especially in the beginning when it's hard, when it takes time? Some people have the keto flu. What would you recommend for those that are potentially considering starting on that path?
Well, the first thing I would recommend would be to read Brain Energy and read Georgia Eads' book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind, and research and find out as much as you can about the diet. Because first of all, it's easy to do it wrong. Um, there are a lot of products out there that say keto on them, like keto hot dog buns and a keto ice cream. And some people might be able to get away with that, but most people won't be able to get away with that. Um, but I would say the second thing I would say would be, don't just stop taking your medications. Um, First, get a hang of the diet. Um, Learn what works for you as far as what kind of food you eat. Definitely track your macros. Most people in the keto carnivore space say don't track your macros, just eat as much as you want and until you're full and stop eating. And that's fine, except when you're doing medical ketosis, you kind of have to track your macros to make sure you're eating the right percentage of fat and the right percentage of protein. So get like Chronometer or Carb Manager and track your macros. And work with the diet for a while and see what you like and what you don't like and what you're going to stick to, because the caveat with this diet is that you have to be able to stick with it for the rest of your life or the next 5 years or whatever the research ends up saying. So you need to find a diet that's going to work. You need to find foods that you like, that you're going to be able to eat for the foreseeable future, and also learn how to deal with eating out I don't eat out much anymore because the because of eating in is so much easier than finding the right macros to order when you're at a restaurant. Um, but yeah, definitely get a hang of the diet, get a hang of what you like and what you're willing to stick to. Um, do and read all those books and get as informed as you can, and then start working on lowering your medication if you and your doctor have talked about um, if that's possible for you,
Right.
if you want to try it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um, and what are your macros right now? Have they changed since?
My macros,
Mm-hmm.
my macros are about 75-25.
And do you do some fasting? You mentioned that you started with the intermittent. Is that what you do throughout the diet, or how does it look like nowadays?
I do intermittent fasting right now. I do 18-6 mostly
Mm-hmm.
to time restricted eating.
Yeah.
I hardly ever do any longer fasts than that. I used to do like 48-hour fasts, 66-hour fasts. I hardly ever do that anymore. I just stick to time restricted eating.
Yeah, that's typical. Usually, when we start with fasting, we can do a little bit more of it, but as time goes,
Yeah.
good to
Yeah, I like eating.
yeah, yeah. And do you also, how do you do it in your time restrictive eating? Do you allow yourself to just snack and like eat as you wish, or is it still structured in like 1 or 2 meals, or what does it look like?
I usually I usually don't snack. I eat 2 meals a day.
Okay.
I usually don't snack. I'm not perfect. Like I'm not a saint. Sometimes every once in a while I snack. But most of the time I don't snack and I just eat 2 meals a day.
Nice. And that's sustainable. You're enjoying it, seems
For
like.
me, yes, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I don't think I would be able to go back to eating 3 meals a day. Um, yeah, because I don't really like eating early in the morning. And to space out your meals, if you eat three meals a day, you have to eat like at 8 o'clock and then at noon and then at 4 or something like that. And I like eating breakfast late and then dinner, and that's what works for me.
Yeah. I love that you found your own, approach. And it's usually with this diet, it gets easier because sometimes when you're not on the diet, 2 meals may seem like not satiating or sufficient enough. But we know that once you get on the diet, fat rich diet is so satiating. Like we don't have to go hungry. It gets easier to go longer times without eating, even as you mentioned, like fasting longer at first. And 2 meals can be totally optimal. Like it can feel good to do that. You don't need more. Your taste buds change, right? Like you now learn how to like those fatty foods more than even carbs. Do you still have any cravings at all for like a
No, not really. I make like banana bread and cookies and cakes and stuff for my family, and it doesn't bother me at all. I just don't eat it.
yeah? So do you ever eat keto desserts made with the keto sweeteners, or how do you
I made some lemon cookies once
once?
with keto chow with
Mm-hmm.
a keto chow recipe, and they were amazing. They were so good. But I haven't made them again. I have to order the keto chow ingredient to make them again. But I'm not gonna make them a lot because I mean I ate like 4 cookies in one sitting that just barely kept me under my carb macros.
Yeah.
So too many. I don't know, it would be too tempting.
Absolutely, yeah. And I love that you're sticking so easily. Sometimes just not introducing those sweeteners for certain people can trigger that craving, even though we're like within the macros and everything.
Yeah.
Like to me also like sticking to, if you can, to whole foods, like nutrient rich foods that you cook from scratch. It's just another, bonus to the amazing effect the diet can have. Now this can become the long-term game where you're having all the nutrients needed, not compromising with inflammation, or like really making the best out of it. I think that's great that you're able to, and
Yeah.
you enjoy it and it's working well. So that's great.
I'm a moderator, not an abstainer.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm able to drink like a lemonade with stevia, and I don't binge. It doesn't make me binge
Hmm.
uh on all of everything that's around me. So I'm lucky
Yeah.
that's the case because a lot of people struggle with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you implement some other healthy lifestyle changes since you, I mean, the diet, at least for me, that was the case. So I always wonder because I have this bigger perspective of this, how can we use this diet to improve every other aspect of life? And for me, it really enabled me to do other things. And I wonder if that was the case for you. Were you able to change your routines or take better care of yourself? Since you mentioned you have more energy, usually that's, if you don't have energy, you don't want to do anything, you don't want to exercise, you don't sleep well, like it's a whole snowball effect of negative things that are, that it's just harder to live healthy and do other things. So how has it been for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess it gave me more energy, and more energy gave me more. I'm kind of a disorganized, but I organized everything. Uh, I'm just more organized about like how I keep my space, and it has not given. I have not like I the other aspect of metabolic health that I need to add is exercise, but yeah, I'm struggling with that. Like I don't like it. So,
Hopefully
so I joined a gym, and hopefully I'll make myself go. So
yeah. And it doesn't have to be exercise. I think starting with just a little bit of movement and exposure to sunlight and all that can be a nice, intro. Doesn't Exercise doesn't work for everyone, but I feel like with the diet and the increased energy, you naturally start craving a little bit more of a movement and, for me, even like enjoy. Obviously, depression lifts, and that kind of gives you just better attitude, better mood. So being out under the sun, just even walking, um, helps. And exercise is really helpful, at least in my case, when I, for whatever reason, maybe overate, or for some reason I got kicked out of ketosis. And if I want to get back to it quickly, exercise and fasting really help me, like literally next day be back in ketosis and always good. So other than that, it's not a requirement, obviously, to stay, but it's a nice way to also expand your tolerance towards more protein, more carbs. But yeah, definitely something you want to take your time with, um, and see how that goes.
yeah, yeah, I've tried different things, and none of them have stuck so far. So I'm gonna keep trying
Yeah.
because I really do believe in metabolic health now.
Yeah.
And I read Brain Energy, and that was one of the sleep and exercise and food.
Yes.
Uh, those were several of the aspects of metabolic health that he mentioned. Um, So yeah, and if I'm going to stick to this, then I want to do the all of the aspects of metabolic health,
Yeah.
not just the eating.
The way I see it is if we approach it as something we have to do, it's hard to make it sustainable. We can use sheer power to kind of power through, but is it sustainable? Can it be a lifestyle? And what I learned with this diet is unless you're getting out of it more than you're giving up, so to speak, right? Like you're giving up the carbs, the breads, whatever, and that's a big thing to give up. But for someone with mental health, the improvements in the mood and lifting depression and feeling better and cognitive and like, right, everything we spoke about, like we can keep going. That's nothing can beat that. So you kind of want to be in ketosis and utilize those benefits. So same thing with exercise. I think when it's giving you those positive feelings and it's worth the investment almost, that's when you're going to stick to it. You keep coming back to it because again it makes you feel better, and that's what we all want, right? Like to thrive, to be healthy, to feel good. So it's a lot more
I agree.
approach,
Hmm.
yeah, when we think of it from that perspective. And whenever the time comes, I would love to do a second check-in with you sometimes later on just to
Yeah.
see how things are going, because I believe that, nothing is set in stones, things can change, and we should be open-minded and keep keep trying and keep investigating and see if we learn better ways, or just being open to all of it that is out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to come out and share. I think it's very valuable. And I know it's not probably easy, but if we can, help answer some questions, then hopefully we did that for at least a few people, and that does it for us. So I appreciate very much your willingness to talk with me today, and let's shoot for another follow up sometimes later down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.